If you walked into your family business tomorrow and discovered you legally owned nothing, even though you never agreed to sell a single share, what would you do? Because that's exactly what happened to me. The worst part? The people who stole everything weren't strangers. They were my own father and my older brother. My name is Ethan. I'm 31, and until last year I would have told anyone I had the perfect family. My parents were respected by everyone in town. My brother Ryan wasn't just my brother, he was my best friend. We grew up sharing everything. We played baseball together, skipped school together, even dreamed about running our grandfather's construction company one day. When Grandpa passed away, the whole family expected Ryan to inherit the business. He had worked there longer, and nobody would have questioned it. Instead, Grandpa surprised everyone. He left the company to both of us, 50-50. Ryan hugged me after the funeral and whispered, "We're going to build this into something Grandpa would be proud of." I looked him in the eyes and believed every word. The first few months were incredible. Ryan managed the office while I handled projects in the field. We landed bigger contracts, hired more workers, and profits kept climbing. It honestly felt like life couldn't get any better. Then small things started happening. Missing invoices. Clients talking about meetings I'd never attended. Financial papers waiting for my signature late at night after exhausting 12-hour shifts. Ryan always smiled and said, "Just routine paperwork." I trusted him enough to sign without reading every page. Looking back now, that was the biggest mistake of my life. I had no idea every signature was another brick in the prison my own family was quietly building around me. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining things. Ryan had been my best friend long before he was my business partner. We'd survived strict parents, bad breakups, and years of barely scraping by together. Why the hell would he betray me now? Every time something felt off, I found an excuse. Missing invoices. Someone in the office misplaced them. Clients talking about conversations I never had. Simple misunderstanding. Financial reports arriving late. The accountant was probably overloaded. I wanted to believe there was a logical explanation because the alternative was too painful to even consider. Still, the strange moments kept piling up. One afternoon I visited a construction site to check on a project we'd just completed. The client shook my hand and smiled. "I appreciate you being flexible about reducing your ownership. Ryan said you wanted less responsibility." I stared at him, completely confused. Reducing my ownership? What are you talking about? His smile slowly disappeared. Maybe I wasn't supposed to mention it. He quickly changed the subject, but the damage was done. My heart was racing all the way back to the office. That evening I called Ryan. I tried to sound casual. "Have you been telling people I'm giving up part of the company?" There was a short silence before he laughed. "Seriously? Since when do you listen to rumors?" "Relax, little brother. People make crap up all the time." His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. I wanted to believe him, but something about that pause kept echoing in my head. The next morning I emailed our accountant asking for copies of every financial statement from the last 6 months. Normally she'd reply within minutes. This time, nothing. I called twice. Straight to voicemail. I sent another email. Still nothing. That's when my gut stopped whispering and started screaming that something was terribly, horribly wrong. For the next few days, I couldn't focus on anything. Every conversation replayed in my head. Every strange comment suddenly made sense. I started paying attention to things I'd ignored for months. Ryan had changed the passwords to several company accounts, claiming it was for security. Important mail was no longer left on my desk. Whenever I walked into the office, people stopped talking. They smiled, but it looked forced. Like they knew something I didn't. Then I decided to stop asking questions and start looking for answers. Early Monday morning, I arrived at the office nearly 2 hours before everyone else. The building was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. My key still worked, which surprised me. I walked straight into Ryan's office. At first glance, everything looked normal. Family photos. Awards. Perfectly organized desk. But the bottom drawer was locked. Ryan had never locked his drawers before. I searched around until I found a spare key taped beneath the desk. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it. Inside was a thick black folder. The first page made my blood run cold. It was a copy of our ownership agreement. Except it wasn't the version I'd signed after Grandpa died. This one showed Ryan owning 75% of the company, and me only 25%. What the hell? I flipped to the next page. Then the next. Every document carried what looked like my signature. Bank authorizations. Ownership transfers. Board resolutions. Loan agreements. Hundreds of thousands of dollars had been borrowed in the company's name. According to these papers, I'd personally approved every single decision. I hadn't signed any of them. Someone had copied my signature perfectly. Then I noticed something even worse. Several documents had been witnessed and signed by my own father. I just stood there, unable to breathe. This wasn't one bad decision. This wasn't one lie. This had been planned for months. Maybe even years. I snapped photos of every document with my phone before putting everything back exactly where I'd found it. My hands were trembling so badly that I had to retake half the pictures. Every file felt like another punch to the chest. By the time I left Ryan's office, I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was terrified. Instead of confronting him, I drove straight to a lawyer. I expected him to tell me I was overreacting. He didn't. He spent nearly an hour flipping through the photos without saying much. The deeper he got into the stack, the more serious his expression became. Finally, he looked up and asked one question. "Did you actually sign these?" "No. Not even one. I've never seen most of them before today." He leaned back in his chair and let out a slow breath. "If that's true, your brother didn't just betray you. Someone committed multiple felonies." My stomach dropped. He explained that forged signatures, fraudulent ownership transfers, and unauthorized loans could mean criminal charges. But proving it wouldn't be easy. Whoever did this had been careful. Then he pointed at one document. "This witness signature, who's this?" I looked down. My father's name. The room suddenly felt too small. My own father hadn't tried to stop Ryan. He'd helped him. I drove home in complete silence. Every childhood memory flashed through my head. Family vacations. Christmas mornings. Dad teaching us how to ride bikes. Ryan standing beside me at my wedding as my best man. Were all those memories real, or had I simply never known who they truly were? That night I barely slept. Around 2 in the morning my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ryan. "Family dinner tomorrow. Dad says don't be late. We have something important to discuss." I stared at the screen for a long time. They had no idea I'd already uncovered their secret. And for the first time in my life, I was about to walk into that house pretending I knew absolutely nothing. The next evening I pulled into my parents' driveway 20 minutes early. Every light in the house was on, just like every Sunday growing up. From the outside, it looked normal. Safe. Familiar. But sitting in my truck, I realized I'd never felt more like a stranger. Mom greeted me with a hug and asked if I was hungry. I forced a smile. The smell of roast chicken filled the house. My nieces were laughing in the living room. Ryan walked in a few seconds later, clapped me on the shoulder, and grinned like nothing had happened. "Glad you made it." I looked him straight in the eyes. "So am I." Dinner was torture. Everyone laughed, passed food around, and talked about vacations, football, and the weather. Meanwhile, I kept wondering how many of them knew what was happening. Was Mom involved? Did my sister know? Or were Dad and Ryan the only ones lying to my face? Halfway through the meal, Dad tapped his glass with a fork. "I've been thinking," he said. "The business is getting bigger. It's time we simplify ownership." I felt my pulse jump. Ryan nodded as if this conversation had already been rehearsed. Dad slid a thick envelope across the table until it stopped in front of me. "There are a few papers inside. Nothing complicated. Sign them tonight and we'll all move forward together." I didn't touch it. Ryan laughed. "Come on, Ethan. You trust us, don't you?" For a second the entire room went silent. Every pair of eyes landed on me. I slowly placed my hand on the envelope, but instead of opening it, I pushed it back across the table. "I think I'll have my lawyer read them first." Ryan's smile disappeared instantly. Dad's face turned pale. And in that single moment, I knew they hadn't expected me to say no. The silence was deafening. Ryan leaned back in his chair and forced a laugh, but it sounded fake. "A lawyer? Seriously? Since when do we need lawyers to trust family?" Dad folded his hands on the table, trying to keep his voice calm. "Ethan, don't make this into something it isn't." I looked from one face to the other. "Then you won't mind if an attorney reviews the paperwork?" Neither of them answered. That told me everything. Dinner ended a few minutes later. Mom looked confused, asking why everyone suddenly seemed upset. Ryan blamed work stress. Dad smiled and changed the subject. I grabbed my jacket and left without dessert. No one tried to stop me. The next morning my lawyer called. "I need you to come in immediately." The moment I sat down, he slid another document across the desk. We pulled the public corporate records. I looked at the filing date. 3 months earlier. According to the state records, I was no longer a 50% owner. Legally, I owned just 5% of the company. What? My lawyer nodded grimly. Someone filed amended ownership documents with forged signatures. They've already been accepted. I couldn't breathe. 5%. The business my grandfather built. The business I'd spent years growing. The business I worked 12-hour days to protect. Was no longer mine. Then my lawyer dropped the real bomb. It gets worse. He handed me a bank statement. A loan for $2.8 million had been taken out using company assets as collateral. Next to the authorization was my signature. Except it wasn't mine. If that loan went unpaid, the company would collapse. And on paper, it would all be my fault. That's when I stopped thinking about saving the business. I started thinking about proving my own family had framed me. My lawyer told me to do one thing above everything else. Don't confront them. Not yet. He explained that if Ryan and my father realized I knew the truth, they could destroy evidence before investigators had a chance to see it. As much as I wanted to drive straight to Ryan's office and scream in his face, I forced myself to stay calm. For the next 2 weeks, I played my role perfectly. I smiled during meetings. I answered Ryan's calls. I even thanked him for handling the paperwork while secretly recording every conversation. The more comfortable he became, the sloppier he got. One afternoon he called me into his office. "I've got one last document for you," he said, sliding another folder across the desk. I opened it slowly. It was a full ownership transfer. If I signed it, every remaining share I legally owned would belong to Ryan. He leaned back and smiled. "Just business. Sign it, and we can finally move forward." I looked at him for several seconds. Then I picked up the pen. Ryan's grin grew wider. Inside, I was boiling. I lowered the pen until it almost touched the paper. Then I stopped. Instead, I asked, mind explaining why my signature is already on page 3? His smile vanished. For the first time since this nightmare began. Ryan looked scared. He grabbed the folder too quickly. You weren't supposed to see that. The word slipped out before he could stop himself. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. I calmly stood up. I think we're done talking. As I walked toward the door, he called after me. Ethan, don't make a mistake you'll regret. I didn't answer. Because at that exact moment, 2 detectives were already walking through the front entrance of the building with a search warrant. I barely made it to the parking lot before 2 unmarked police cars pulled in behind me. My lawyer stepped out of another vehicle and gave me a small nod. It's starting, he said. We walked back toward the building together. Ryan was standing in the lobby arguing with 2 detectives while my father paced near the reception desk. The confidence they'd carried for months had completely disappeared. One detective approached me. Mr. Carter. We'd like you to identify a few documents. My hands were steady now. The fear had burned away, leaving nothing but anger. Inside the conference room, investigators had already spread dozens of files across the table. Some were the same forged documents I'd photographed. Others I'd never seen before. Fake meeting minutes. Fraudulent loan applications. Even emails that had been sent from an account pretending to be mine. Then the forensic examiner spoke. We've already compared the signatures. I held my breath. They're traced copies. Ryan closed his eyes. Dad looked at the floor. Neither of them said a word. A detective opened another folder. We also recovered deleted messages from the company server. He read one aloud. Ryan, he still trusts me. Just keep him signing papers. Then another. Dad, once the transfer is complete, he'll have no way to fight it. The room went completely silent. I felt like someone had punched a hole through my chest. Those weren't rumors. Those weren't misunderstandings. Those were my father and my brother planning to steal everything from me in their own words. Ryan finally looked up. Ethan. I can explain. I stared at him for several long seconds. Then I shook my head. No, you can't. One of the detectives stepped forward and reached for his handcuffs. Ryan's face turned white. Dad whispered my name. But I couldn't even look at him anymore. The sound of the handcuffs clicking around Ryan's wrists echoed through the room. I'd heard that sound in movies 100 times, but hearing it happen to my own brother felt unreal. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Ethan, please. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Then my father stepped between us. This was my idea, he said quietly. Leave Ryan out of it. Ryan immediately shook his head. No. Don't lie. We both did it. They started arguing right there in front of the detectives, each trying to shift the blame, interrupting each other, exposing lie after lie. Every excuse made things worse. Every sentence destroyed another piece of the family I thought I had. Finally, I couldn't stay silent anymore. You looked me in the eyes for months, I said. You hugged me. You ate dinner with me. You watched me work 12-hour days to grow Grandpa's company, while you were stealing it behind my back. Why? Neither of them answered. My father lowered his head. Ryan wiped his face. Then he whispered the words that hurt more than anything else. You were always Grandpa's favorite. He trusted you more than me. I couldn't stand it. That was it. Not money. Not debt. Not survival. Jealousy. They destroyed our family because Ryan couldn't accept Grandpa's decision, and Dad chose to protect one son by sacrificing the other. As detectives led them toward the exit, Ryan turned around one last time. I never wanted it to go this far. I looked him straight in the eyes. You should have thought about that before the first lie. The doors closed behind them. For the first time in months, the building was completely silent. And somehow, that silence hurt even more than the betrayal itself. The investigation lasted almost 9 months. Every forged document was examined. Every bank transfer was traced. Every deleted email was recovered. In the end, the truth was impossible to deny. Ryan and my father were both convicted of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The illegal loans were thrown out because the signatures had been forged, and ownership of the company was finally restored to me. People always ask if that felt like a victory. Honestly, it didn't. I got the business back, but I lost my family. My mother filed for divorce after everything came out. She swore she never knew what they were doing, and after seeing the evidence, I believe her. She still calls me every Sunday, but our conversations are quieter now. There are long pauses that never used to exist. As for Ryan, I haven't spoken to him since the day he was taken away in handcuffs. A few months ago he sent me a letter. It was 3 pages long. He apologized for everything and begged me to forgive him. I never replied. Some wounds don't heal because someone says they're sorry. They heal because you finally stop letting the people who hurt you control your life. Today the company is doing better than ever. We renamed it after my grandfather, just like he'd always wanted. Every morning I unlock the front door myself, and every evening I leave knowing the business was built on honesty again, not lies. If this whole nightmare taught me anything, it's that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it wears a familiar face, sits across from you at dinner, and tells you everything is going to be okay while quietly taking everything you have. So now I want to ask you. What would you have done in my place? Could you ever forgive your own family after something like this? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to read what you think.